At her wedding, my stepdaughter ignored me and replaced me with her biological father, but when the bill came due, I was already gone. I've been married to my wife Sarah for more than 20 years. When we first met, she was a single mother to a 5-year-old girl named Emma. Emma was a bright-eyed, inquisitive little girl with a laugh that could illuminate a room. The very first time I laid eyes on her, she was chasing a paper airplane throughout the park, holding Sarah's hand firmly as they walked in my direction. Something about that instant told me they were going to be my future. Sarah was honest from the beginning about her history. Emma's biological father, Mark, had always been unreliable, full of hollow promises and brief appearances. He'd ring on birthdays, give cheap gifts, and then vanish once more. Emma would always get excited whenever he appeared, though Sarah would try to temper her expectations. When Sarah and I became serious, she made it plain that Emma was her priority. I embraced that completely. What I didn't anticipate was just how much I'd fall in love with her. It wasn't right away, but as time went on, every "Dad, I love you" and every little drawing with my name misspelled won me over. I was there when she learned to cycle after many falls and scraped knees. I was there when she had a high fever at 3 in the morning holding her, while Sarah rushed to grab a thermometer when she did her first school recital. I practiced her poem with her until she had it memorized. On the day she came out, she was shaking behind the curtain, but looked for my face in the audience before she began needing reassurance that I was present. I always was. Mark, by contrast, was just a minor figure. He made grand promises. Next summer, I'll take you to the beach, or I'll get you that bike you've wanted, but he never made good on them. Emma would cry when those promises didn't materialize, and I always helped her through it. I never wanted to be the cause of her losing faith in her father. As she got bigger, our relationship only got stronger. I was the one who attended her school events, helped her select her graduation dress, and supported her from the stands at her competitions. She referred to me as Dad, and even though I wasn't her biological father, I understood that she truly meant it. That's the reason what came next destroyed me. When Emma went off to university, I supported her without hesitation. I paid for most of her tuition expenses, books, and even her modest apartment deposit. It was a financial strain, but it didn't bother me. I wanted her to have the chance. One, I never had. Mark, as usual, stayed inconsistent. He'd phone sometimes to say, "Your dad is proud of you," but never gave money or took an energetic role in her life. When Emma got her degree, she hurried over to me after the event, eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Dad, for all you've done. I couldn't have made it without you." In that moment, each and every sacrifice seemed well worth it. So when Emma told me about her wedding to Andrew, I was legitimately thrilled, happy. I envisioned escorting her down the aisle, a defining moment expressing all we had gone through. I never mentioned it publicly, but I naturally assumed that duty would be mine. After all, I had been there for every important event. The time before the wedding was bursting with joy. Emma discussed her gown, the blooms, the songs. As usual, I gave my help paying for part of the celebration, giving money for her gown and covering other fees. I never anticipated anything in exchange except to be thought of as a vital component of her special day. Then the invitation showed up. I unwrapped it with a grin, anticipating my name in a prominent spot. Instead, it was simply a regular attendee list. My name was nowhere special, worse. Yet, Emma had selected Mark to walk her down the aisle. At first, I believed there was an issue, but when I spoke with her about it, her words struck me like a blow. "There's only one actual biological father, and I've wished to provide him this opportunity I can't put into words." How that hurt. So many years of affection, devotion, and hard work dismissed, as if it meant anything at all. But the worst component wasn't her selection. It was how casually she said it, like it had never even come to mind to pick me. Her wedding was among the most painful days of my life. I showed up early in a suit that had been customized for the event, sat quietly with all the other guests, and saw as everyone's focus was on Mark walking Emma down the aisle during the toasts. I held my breath, hoping maybe I'd be recognized. No one did. I felt unnoticed. A bit of me fractured that day. The piece of me that had constantly been prepared to sacrifice just went dormant. I didn't realize it at that point, but that second was the start of a shift that would change everything. That instant, seeing Emma walk down the aisle with Mark's arm, was permanently etched in my memory. She looked beautiful like every bride would. But for me, the sight was filled with frustration, not because I didn't desire her happiness, but because I saw at that moment that I was replaceable to her. The days following the wedding, Emma and Andrew went off on an extravagant honeymoon, a beachfront resort with gorgeous vistas and excellent amenities. I didn't ask a lot about it. I couldn't manage to be part of chats. about anything that represented the end of what we had. What I didn't foresee was what took place when Emma got back. She scarcely got through unpacking before ringing me. Her demeanor was upbeat, as though nothing occurred. She went on about the ocean, the surprise meal Andrew had set up beneath the night sky. I sat there listening in silence, giving brief replies, struggling to maintain control. Then the discussion shifted in a way I should have predicted Dad. She said the intimacy of that name burning more than I would have wanted to acknowledge. I have a request, she stated. There had been certain unforeseen prices during the honeymoon, and they were running low on cash. Could I assist with paying the bills for just a second? I couldn't speak the way she requested, so nonchalantly, so expecting, like she just believed I'd say yes the way I consistently had. I was the one who solved difficulties, who gave, who sacrificed for her with no hesitation. But this occasion, anything in me rejected. Maybe it was injured self-respect, or maybe it was the accumulation of decades of being disregarded. All I realize is this moment I didn't experience that sense of duty. I'm afraid, Emma, I responded, maintaining my composure, though my emotions ran wild. I'm unable to assist you with this one silence. I could envision the bewilderment in her expression, but you've always been willing. Before she at last responded, disbelief evident in her phrasing. I breathed carefully. Perhaps you need to talk to Mark. He's your actual biological father, isn't he? Perhaps he will be able to assist. Another extended pause. Then a hushed, I get it, and the connection ended. No pushback, no frustration, just a hasty halt that created a hollow sensation in my core. After Sarah came to see me. She informed me I was unkind, declared I simply couldn't just leave Emma behind when she was struggling. I conveyed to her it had nothing to do with cash, it had to do with respect. I was present for her for over 20 years, Sarah, and when she got the possibility to recognize that she chose to pretend like that wasn't sufficient, I'm unable to keep serving as her alternate whenever circumstances go poorly. Sarah wasn't able to comprehend to her ancestry always was most significant, even when that lineage had only offered unfulfilled commitments. The conversation finished in quiet, but something with us transformed. An invisible partition developed where there had before been none. Emma has not gotten in contact with me ever since. Right after that phone call, Sarah informed me that Andrew felt I had let down Emma during a difficult instant. Apparently, Mark had unsurprisingly gone away. No contact, no indication, nothing. I suppose Emma was eventually grasping reality, but that wasn't going to alter her activities or the manner in which she had impacted me that evening. Sitting alone in the family room, I went through each occasion I had supported Emma. Every instant she had grinned and referred to me as Dad, and I recognized a truth I had continuously believed. That name was an option, a sign that I had earned my spot in her world. But currently I questioned if it was merely a handy phrase to her, anything she mentioned when it aided her. I'm uncertain if I'm able to get over this. Yet one thing is definite: next time I won't keep providing, because in all honesty, I believe I have absolutely nothing left to offer. Update: 3 months since the wedding, and though I've attempted to maintain distance, chaos continues to track me down. Sarah keeps trying to mend things between Emma and me, staring at me with that blend of letdown and imploring, as though anticipating me to relent and become the individual who always accepted. But what she doesn't get, or chooses not to recognize, is that a part of me transformed that instant. I'm unable to simply return to the way it had been since the discussion where I declined to fund Emma's honeymoon. Our bond has totally faded. She hasn't messaged, and though it was difficult at the outset, currently, it feels like comfort. No more requests for cash disguised as informal contact. What did shock me, however, was how swiftly issues emerged in her union. Sarah, of course, maintained constant interaction with Emma and brought it up casually during a meal one evening. Emma and Andrew are dealing with cash problems, she voiced with a sigh. Andrew was let go from his position and they're battling to pay their bill. I went back to consuming, already sensing where this conversation was heading. Sarah continued, "Wouldn't you think we must help them? She's our daughter in the end." I set down my eating utensil and breathed carefully. I'm no longer her dad, Sarah. According to Emma, that job is Mark's, so if she requires support, she should reach out to him. Sarah stared at me as if I had just expressed something reprehensible. How could you be so distant? She's consistently leaned on you. You're unable to turn away from her right now. I released a grim chuckle. Distant is what she did to me at her celebration, because in truth, that's what it felt like. Distant and forgotten, like I didn't spend 2 decades being the individual who was present for her. If Mark is her dad for the significant occasions, then he has to be her dad in the trying moments. Also, that wrapped up the meal. Sarah left, angrily moving her dish to the basin. That evening, we rested silently with our backs facing each other. It caused pain that this was harming our bond, but I could not continue being the individual who supplied and offered, getting absolutely absolutely nothing back in exchange. In spite of all this, Emma didn't take long to make contact, though not by herself. A week later, I received a text from Andrew, brief yet full of despair. "Hey, it's Andrew, Emma's spouse. I'm interested in speaking with Y.O. regarding a matter of importance. Do you have a moment?" I didn't message back immediately. I let the text stay there, a sign of how drastically circumstances had changed. I examined it repeatedly, knowing just what he was requesting: cash. It was consistently cash. At some point, I opted to listen. I didn't have anything to lose. We arranged to meet at a nearby restaurant. Andrew was sitting there already anxiously tapping his leg, looking at a cup of espresso that hadn't been touched. I took my spot without exchanging words, waiting for him to be the first to share. "Thanks for attending," he finally said. Though his manner was devoid of emotion, it seemed more like an expectation. "I acknowledge things have gotten messy between you and Emma. However, we're having difficulties and believed perhaps you might be able to assist." There was the unavoidable plea. I maintained my composure. "What's your situation?" I questioned. Although I knew the response beforehand, Andrew exhaled, concentrating on his beverage as Thaug, trying to find the perfect expression. "Emma and I have been dealing with financial challenges. Ever since the trip, I recently lost my employment, and we're now struggling with our lease. If we're unable to pay within 14 days, we'll be removed." I listened attentively, letting his words land before posing the question he definitely wasn't prepared for. "Have you spoken with Mark?" Andrew seemed puzzled. "Mark? No, we haven't reached out to him. Emma was convinced that you could help. You've been there for her in the past." I smirked, but it wasn't pleasant. It was resentful, pointed. "That's right," I replied, shifting near. "And yet, when it was her choice, she went with Mark. So no, Andrew, I'm going to be unable to assist this point. Perhaps it's time for Mark to finally be of use for once." Andrew made an effort to convince me, saying it would be unjustified if they ended up homeless, that this was concerning not simply Emma, but him as well. I moved my arm to stop him. "This dialogue has concluded," I said with assurance. "I wish you both all the best. However, I'm unable to continue addressing your circumstances." I rose to my feet, abandoning him with his frigid beverage and his irritation. When I made it back to the property, Sarah had set herself up for me, as though she was expecting it. I didn't give her facts. She had no requirement for them. She could see I had decided not to give support. Since then, Emma and Andrew have stopped trying. Sarah continues to be disappointed, though she stopped urging me to back down, but I sense this won't conclude. When a fortress collapses, there's consistently more rubble left to clear. Update: 6 months have gone by from the celebration, and in total candor, these seasons have been remarkably liberating. I've been steadfast in my choice to refrain from engaging with Emma and Andrew's complications, though it's required managing Sarah's continuous annoyance. She doesn't state it clearly, yet I notice it in the expression on her face. She continues to not forget me for what she considers a act. Disloyalty, no matter what number of occasions. I note that this isn't concerning currency, but regard she either can't accept or will not yet. The gap between Emma and me has created a surprising feeling of freedom. For the earliest point in multiple years, I'm liberated from the stress of always holding it all up. I've started devoting attention to myself again, revisited interests like furniture making, invested additional moments with loved ones, things I had put to the side for ages. At first, I carried regret about taking this option for myself, but at this point, I recognize it as required. Still, the turmoil hasn't ended. A handful of weeks back, Sarah mentioned that Emma and Andrew were at last removed. They were unable to get sufficient funds to get back on pace with rent, and their property manager was out of forbearance. Currently, they're residing in Andrew's mother's place in a limited room barely sufficient for a couple, let alone a husband and wife. Sarah was absolutely livid when she spoke. "To me, this wouldn't be going down if you'd backed them up." She expressed, her phrasing saturated with the presently recognizable accusation. I chose to stay quiet. It made no sense to reply. Sarah will continuously regard me as accountable for every challenge Emma goes through. What she doesn't understand is that fundamentally I'm cognizant I chose the route that was moral. Emma made the call to cast me out, and at this point she's suffering from her selection. The fascinating aspect per Sarah, Mark has remained completely gone throughout everything. He didn't even contact when Emma attempted to seek aid. Not unexpectedly, he's been fickle his entire life. Yet I discover it remarkable with everything the pressure Emma exerted into setting him up on the pedestal. He's nowhere when she genuinely wants him. Several times back, Sarah mentioned something while she was getting ready meals that practically had me grinning. Emma states Mark committed to supporting her get a different place, but he's yet to accomplish it. He mentions he's holding back till his resources are in order. I glanced at her with shock, and Emma continues to count on him regardless of an eternity of shattered pledges. She keeps accepting it. What? I responded, not with frustration, but sincere bewilderment. Sarah uttered a sound that conveyed fatigue, staring at me with unhappiness. He's her papa, she replied matter-of-factly, as though that described everything that Chad occupied a spot in my awareness. For many seasons I had strived to occupy the emptiness Mark had left in Emma's presence, but at this point, I pondered, had everything been pointless? Had everything been wasted? Perhaps for her heredity always held greater significance than conduct. Perhaps I was never battling with Mark's involvement, but merely the truth that he was existing a couple of weeks back. Emma ultimately contacted me. Shockingly, it wasn't connected to finances. She sent a note requesting to meet up, conveying she required a dialogue. I hesitated quite extensively, BF, or answering. Yet ultimately, curiosity took over. We assembled at a recreation area we regularly visited back when she was young. Emma had gotten there first, lounging on a seat, anxiously manipulating her palms. When I got close, she got to her feet and embraced me uncertainly, an embrace that felt unfeeling, yet I acknowledged it merely to be nice. For several seconds, we remained seated with neither of us talking. Then she initiated speaking, though not regarding the circumstances she had phoned me for. Instead, she explained about the struggle of staying in Andrew's mother's residence, the stress in her union, how deeply she wished to possess her personal residence. I heard without interrupting. I recognized she had a lot she needed to get out. Then at final, she approached the subject. Dad. She expressed a term that had meaning at one point to me, but currently felt hollow. I understand I've let you down. I realize I didn't live up to what you deserved. I'm aware the celebration impacted you, and I don't assume. I grasped the significance till much later I paused, providing her room to go on inside. I felt a range of sentiments, shock, ache, and a persistent bitterness. Emma drew a breath. Preceding, she continued, I really just wish to mention, I'm regretful for how circumstances ended. I didn't intend to cause you to experience displacement, yet you were displaced. I replied with tranquility, yet clarity. And it wasn't limited to the celebration, Emma. Every instance you disregarded, all that I provided, every moment you selected to view Mark as being beyond what he genuinely was. You say you didn't desire me to have that experience, yet I genuinely don't feel I ever held that role to start with. Emma looked downward, seeming broken from my language. Perhaps she thought I would basically take her message and go back to the path we had been on, yet that wasn't any longer feasible. Some moments once destroyed cannot be fixed. The discussion came to an end shortly thereafter. As we went our separate directions, she informed me she wished we were able to reconstruct our connection. Eventually, I didn't reply, not since I didn't wish it to occur, but since I doubted whether it was achievable. Emma didn't just leave my affection in fragments. She damaged anything more profound, my assurance in her update. I executed something neither Sarah nor Emma will be able to overlook me for, and genuinely I'm uncertain if I must even request forgiveness for the prior 12 months. From the celebration, my partnership with Sarah has deteriorated beyond my comprehension. What began as psychological separation has become an impassable obstacle. The tenderness, the connection, even the understanding we previously had appears absent. We inhabit the residence collectively, yet not as companions. Ever since the wedding, there hasn't been any closeness at the outset. I imagined it would be temporary, an outcome of pressure, but with the passing months, I determined Sarah wasn't simply frustrated, she was offended. She blamed me for Emma's difficulties, and that anger saturated into all parts of our union. The periods we would use to spend interacting or enjoying programs are now silent. Every occasion I make an effort to get near, she withdraws, establishing a partition within us, and existing within that vacancy. Another individual appeared in my life. Sophie, Sarah's longtime companion. She had continuously been around, found the entertaining aunt to Emma, giving lavish offerings and recounting comical anecdotes. Yet as time went on from the celebration, something shifted. She started contacting more regularly, looking in on me. Initially, I believed she had been attempting to support me in resolving circumstances between Sarah and myself, but eventually I came to understand it represented anything beyond that. Sophie was the singular individual that truly paid attention. She explained to me what no alternate soul had, that I was accurate, that my perspective had legitimacy, that I was not fairly handled, that Sarah wasn't being fair. I enjoyed OU. Our exchange is something I started wanting. We had connection that didn't view myself as the antagonist in this saga. I won't claim it had been deliberate, because it wasn't. It simply unfolded like a liquid liquid taking a different avenue one time following yet another extended interchange. We remained, still simply observing one another. We'd covered so much: how I felt unimportant in my residence, how Sarah grew indifferent, how my situation felt it was destroying. Then all at once Sophie extended her limb and uttered a remark that left me paralyzed. You merit satisfaction and they aren't delivering it. I'm not certain what triggered me to approach her, her tone, the intensity of her look. But shortly after I realized I was embracing her, and she reciprocated that occasion, I didn't go back to where I sleep. I invested the hours with Sophie, engaging, exchanging feeling, finally expressing months of concealed feeling. I experienced something I hadn't for a while. I was recognized. I experienced being treasured more. Significantly, I sensed supported. I recognized the behavior I'm choosing is not right. Yet, I'm not disappointed with myself. Sophie has been my release, someone that actually comprehends me. I experienced with her the intimacy I was missing with Sarah. Interaction. Sarah has a feeling that something is occurring. She observes me whenever I get back at night times or move to get my messages. However, she's not confronted me. Sophie is conflicted with herself too. Yet, we don't regret our selections. I'm conscious this can't persist. When Sarah learns the narrative, there exists no path back. Yet presently, I don't experience such solitude. Final update. 2 calendar years have gone by from that moment. It resembles an ancient storm in my recollection, yet the consequences live on. I've gone ahead and taken life in a fresh path, though I'm unable to say if I'm able to repair the damage. Sarah and Emma erased me from their presence totally. In a sense, they relieved me when I at last revealed the facts. Sarah's reactio and exceeded even my projections. She addressed me before I was able to speak. What exactly is this? I've seen how you've been switching. Tell me honestly. I disclosed. Sophie and we've been together. She supported me when nobody was present. Sarah's appearance altered from amazement to wrath. Then her terms were released and continue haunting me. So every single bit, everything we made meant absolutely nothing to you. I remained silent without anything to articulate. All my hard work had been aimed at maintaining my household, yet I did not accomplish this. I expressed my tone unsteady. While you were making efforts to retrieve Emma, I misplaced myself and you weren't even able to perceive it. She shrieked with such intensity it caused ache. What has gone down is reprehensible. How were you able to wreck our family? Emma went into the living area. She was already conscious. Her tone was stone cold. I assumed you held yourself to a superior code than this, but you never actually respected us, did you? You simply wanted the credit. And see what you've resulted in. That's not accurate, I stated, quivering. You distanced yourself from me. You went towards Mark. And whenever you wanted help, I was expected to handle it. Yet when I submitted everything, it was never adequate. Was it adequate? Sarah hollered. That doesn't make this deception acceptable. And she released me just as quickly, and exactly like that, they requested I depart, to refrain from reaching out ever, to not get in contact with the discomfort. Yet, at the same time, I experienced something transformative. There was not anything left to preserve. I found a modest dwelling. The splitting process was unpleasant, yet the deepest hurt wasn't the court procedures. It was recognizing that the future I had developed was finished through everything. Sophie remained present, my solace, my inspiration. She didn't justify my transgressions, but she didn't assess me either. Weeks down the line, when I had begun creating my life again, I received a message from Emma. Dad, I recognize I hurt you. I recognize I abandoned you. Yet you will forever be my biological dad. I'm truly regretful. I realize matters will not return to what they were, but you will be cherished by me infinitely. I didn't message her at that moment. The discomfort was still too overwhelming. Perhaps eventually I will obtain calmness, but at this instant, I'm continuing my journey irrespective of what I've left in my past.